guys, it's Bia here. So today we're back with another video. Now today we're in my desk so that I can show you guys a few things. I'm going to give you some tips on how to analyze your work. And by your work, I mean your artwork, your textiles work, your graphics work, you know, anything creative that you might need some help and just getting the ball started, you know, when you're having to describe it, analyzing it, and how can you go about it and how can you make it simple and easy to do? Because if you follow these simple steps I'm going to give you today, it's going to make it so much easier. Sometimes when you're looking at your work, you might find it difficult to say anything about it. You just kind of either like it or don't like it, but you don't really know the reasons why, or you just think, oh, I just like it. But deep inside, there's actually reasons why you like it more than something else. And this is going to help you out if you're at uni stage, if you're at A-level stage, or if you're still in GCSE stage. So this is tips that you can take throughout your creative journey, and you can just apply them and you'll make it so much easier for you guys. So let's get started. Also, before getting started, don't forget to subscribe down below, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. I post more on Instagram than I do on TikTok because I've been kind of busy with my uni work lately. So I haven't been able to post as much as I used to in summer. I will be trying to get back on it, especially with YouTube as well. I have been off for a while and you guys might have noticed it, but we're getting back on it. I'm trying really hard to give you guys content and to answer all the questions that you guys have been leaving in the comments. So if you have any more questions after this video relating to your work, how to do portfolios, how to make your work better, how to get high grades, just leave them down below in the comments and I will do my best to answer your questions. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about in relation to how to analyze your work is that we need to break down what it means to analyze your work. Now, to me, analyzing your work is a reflection of what you like and what you don't like about your work. So maybe there's a piece that you prefer over another. So I have this from a long time ago. This is when I was still doing my GCSEs and I did like a little course. So I have this and I have this. I did this on the same day using the same technique, which was a printing technique. Now there's a reason why I would prefer this one over this one, but is it just because I like it more, or is there a deeper reason? In my opinion, the reason why I like this one more is because the colors are brighter and there's higher contrast. And also, I love how this here, the lighter color layers over the darker color and it kind of contrasts with it. So that would be my reason. It could also be the textures on it. It can also be the colors. I just prefer red over yellow or over blue or whatever color it may be. I just prefer it. Also, because when reflecting on this, the prints on this one didn't come up as nice as this one because the bird that I tried to create here did not show up as I expected it to, which is why I don't really like it as much. So that might be my reason for, if I'm comparing this piece to this piece, that's the reason why I would prefer it. Maybe you're not pleased with the way it came out, or you expected something different, or it's the colors and textures just that they are not working well together. So that's one of my examples. Now, in addition to breaking down what analyzing is, I also think that it should be a reflection of your work. As I said, if I was reflecting, for example, on this piece, okay, I might talk about the technique that I used. So is it something that I tried here that I liked about, like, for example, did I like the fact that I used block printing on this or not? Is it going to give me the desired outcome that I expected? And will I be able to use this later on? So if you did various experiments, so this is only two. I'm pretty sure I only have two. I don't have any more because there wasn't much that we did on that day. I can just double check for you guys. So this was from that day. As you guys can see, I still have the blocks that I used when printing, but I don't think there's anything else here. No, actually there isn't. This is something else. Reflecting on these pieces, I could talk about the techniques, so the printing. Also, this is the calcomania underneath. If I might be wrong, I might be right, I'm not sure. Or maybe I just rolled some ink on top. And I don't know if you guys can see, but on this one there's like a lot of texture within it. I don't know if you guys can, if the camera has focused on it very well, but there's quite a lot of layering of different things, and that kind of creates a really cool texture with the red. Can you see the reds coming out from the blue? I really like that. So I could say that I expected this to happen and this is something I'm taking forward. Or I could say, well, this was something unexpected when layering the dark blue over the red. And by doing that, I have now created a new technique that I will be using again in the future. And this is also something that you guys have to take in consideration when you're doing each experiment. Make sure you note down the steps that you used when you were doing it. So if you're not just following the regular steps like step 1, step 2, step 3, and you do it in the way that maybe your teacher taught you, maybe you add different things in between just for the sake of experimenting, make sure you note it down so that if you're going to describe it or you're going to reuse it later, this is kind of like doing science experiments. So note down each step that you're doing in case that one of them is the one that you like the most. So if you want to recreate it later in your work, you remember exactly how you did it. This takes us into the next step, so taking it forward, how are you going to use it later? Maybe when you're doing your final piece, imagine you're doing, I don't know, a painting, but you want the background to be printed on so that you create a certain amount of texture. Then you should talk about how you're planning to use this later on. That's also something else that you should be doing in your analysis of your work. Another thing I want to talk about is things that you can analyze within your work. I've kind of mentioned them before, but let's just talk about them again. So one of the things I was speaking about is texture. So as I said, there's various elements of texture within this piece of work, and if I were to talk about it, I could say that the fact that I've layered the ink over each other is giving me a very soft texture, or you can say even actually a quite rough texture, an uneven texture that I really like. If you're doing textiles, for example, and you're experimenting with the different technique, for example, I have this here that I used the needle punching machine for, and this was an experiment that I did at uni. I could talk about how I prefer when I use a certain technique that created this texture over this texture, and how this relates more to my work and what I aspire to do in the future instead of this, or vice versa. So as you can see, this is very simple. I also did it on a small piece of fabric, so this can bring you back to the experimentation. I tried to do a very small piece of fabric with that method, joining two pieces together, and this one kind of messed up because I did it for too long and then it ripped. So you can talk about how things go wrong within your textures and how you would make them better. Maybe you don't like texture at all, maybe you like things nice and smooth and you just want to have blocks of colors together, so that might be what you're into. So you can talk about the lack of texture or the amount of texture that is on there, and you can have specific descriptions of each texture that you have within your work. So the next thing that you guys can talk about is contrast. So I don't know if I have, so for example, I have this here. This is something that sorry for my table, it's actually quite messed up. I don't want the light to mess up for you guys. I have this here. This is actually printed on acetate. So this is a photo I took of my friend when we were doing some experiments with photography. So what I could talk about with this one is contrast. I can say that there's high contrast between her face and the background, and this is something that I really like about this picture, and I will take this forward because I really enjoy the fact that you can't see anything else but her face, and then I can go into a deeper meaning. Also, the colors within this, you can talk about why you chose the colors and what the colors mean. Maybe I've split her face because it's talking about how you have contrasting emotions at the same time and you feel lonely and you feel all kinds of things. So from this one image you can talk about a lot of different things. But back to the thing with the contrast, I can talk about how this one, for example, has high contrast. But if I bring on another one, for example, this thing that I did, which was preparing for a painting that I was going to do, this is actually a photocopy of a piece that I did in using pastels. And you can say that this doesn't have as much contrast as this, although these are completely completely different things. But you can say that you don't like this one as much because it doesn't have that much contrast, and the colors are all kind of in the same shade. There's nothing really popping out, and they're all kind of just blending together. And you can say that this one is more professional, and you prefer it because it really brings the attention of the viewer into one section of the face and then allows them to move around in that area as they look at it and they analyze it deeper. So you can talk about how contrast helps you out in that. You can also talk about scale. So one thing I have here is these birds that I was doing once. I know I have a lot of different types of work, but I just like to try different things. So I have this bird, and you can talk about, for example, if I was to reflect on this, I could mention how I have high contrast with scale. So I have this massive bird, and then I have all these small ones, and you can talk about how how it fits within the page, which is also something to do with the space. So are you happy with the space that this image is filling within the page? And are you happy within the scale? So before I did this, I actually did quite a lot of different drawings of birds, which I got inspired from this little piece of wallpaper. This was actually the inspiration for this bird. But as I was saying, I took this bird, I did some drawings of it in different poses and how I liked it, and then after figuring out the scale and the position that I wanted it, then I moved on to this, and I decided that I wanted this massive bird contrasting in terms of scale, contrasting with the small ones, and how this would drag the attention of the viewer to this section of the page and really take their time to look at the details and to really focus on the different things and let them flow through the picture this way. So that's something that you can talk about. So is it too big? Is it too small? I was happy with this, but I could not have been happy, and I would prefer to make them slightly bigger or slightly smaller. So this is something that you can discuss if you had made this piece. This is just an example. Maybe you could say, well, actually, I think this bird is too big. I should make it slightly smaller and make this section slightly bigger, because there's way too much contrast between each one and it's just distracting and it doesn't fit well together. So that can be one thing that you might want to talk about. Another thing might be the color. So you can discuss the colors that you used and why you used them, as I said before. This piece, I decided to keep it very neutral, not neutral, like using very similar tones within like the different blues and greens. I did not want to use anything else because I wanted to just keep it with that one aesthetic. So I wanted to keep it very peaceful, very calm, and I did not want, because there's already a lot going on here. For example, I don't know if you guys can see very well, because there's already a lot going on in this piece. There's a lot of small details, there's a lot of lines going on, a lot of, basically quite a bit of chaos, if that makes any sense. There's so much going on that if I used different colors within it, I was worried that it would distract you and they would not fit well together. So that's why I decided to keep it with only a few colors. Okay, so that is also bringing us back to the use of light and the use of colors which match together. So this brings us back to the color wheel and colors which are opposites to each other, or the ones that are next to each other on the color wheel. So if you looked at the color wheel and you looked at these colors, they would all be around each other and near each other, instead of me, for example, using a purple and a, I don't know, and a yellow in the piece, which would create a lot of contrast, I used very similar colors in order to create a peaceful and cohesive look to it. Another thing that we should talk about is patterns. Now, I don't have anything right now with patterns. How is that even possible? This might be a pattern, but it's not a very good pattern. You could talk about this one, and you could say that, well, this is not a very coherent pattern, and I would like to make it smaller or bigger. Brings us back to size. So everything kind of mixes together, as you guys can see. I'm just telling you guys how I could describe different things and how I could basically criticize them or I could praise them. That's basically what analysis of your work is. Criticizing your work or praising your work, or doing both at the same time, and then figuring out what is it that works and what is it that doesn't work. And that's how you're going to develop your work and analyze your work. But let me just try and see if there's anything good I can find for you guys. Okay, there's one good example. Let's see this one. Although it's not very 100% relevant to what you would do in A-level textiles or... Anyways, so we have this here. So these are just some drawings that I did of a project. This is basically just a personal project that I had just some interest in. I wanted to design something inspired by Baroque patterns and 18th century women's fashion. And then I wanted to put a modern twist on it. That was basically the idea. So what I really wanted to do here was I wanted to use some patterns that were inspired by the era. So I used these very, I don't know if you guys can see, it looks like little leaves on their legs. So if I was to discuss this, I could perhaps say, well, I think in my drawing these are too overwhelming and there's too many on the trousers, for example. I can say there's too many on the legs and it's just too much, and I would blow them up a little bigger and I would make the pattern better. Or you can discuss different things within the patterns where, for example, these are all just kind of side by side, but I could position them differently in order to create a more interesting pattern. Now, I have a book here about patterns that we can discuss on another video, but that is just one of the examples. This is something else. These are all together. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I really like these old school, very extravagant designs, and it's something I really like. But I had some patterns drawn on a book. If I could show you guys so you guys can see. Let me just... I found it. So in this book I have the patterns. Finally I found it for you guys. So let me just take you guys to the right page. So as you guys can see, I do a lot of sketches that are actually not even used. So here it is. So here I was experimenting with different patterns. So with the same idea, I was going through each one and I was trying to find out which one made more sense and which one I liked the most. Now, the one I liked the most was this one here, which was the yellow on top of the blue with the white dot. The reason for that is because these were standing out too much. These two are my favorite ones. These ones are the ones I like the least. The reason for that, for myself, is these ones don't have as much contrast as these. So if I was to make it into a fabric, it would be much more appealing for the eye and for someone if they were going to wear it than if it was for these. That was just basically my idea. Obviously I tried different things, but they didn't work. Conclusion of the video is you guys should be slightly critical of yourselves at every stage of your work. You should really focus on finding out what you like about it and what you don't like about it and why you don't like it. And that's why I give you guys the props of the texture, contrast, scale, color, pattern, space, and light. Okay, so these things that you can talk about within it in order to help you analyze your work. These are the basics, and you can obviously go much deeper within each one. But if you make sure that you do the 6 things that I talked about, which is the texture and so on, and finding out what you like and you don't like, I'm 100% sure that you'll be able to analyze every single piece of work that you have. And by doing that, you'll develop much more as a creative individual, and you'll most likely get a higher grade in your work because it shows that you are really thinking about what works and what doesn't and how you're taking it forward. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like on this video and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Also, don't forget to leave a comment below if you have any questions, if there's anything that was not clear in my video. And if there's anything else that you'd like to know, or if you'd like to see any of this work and you want me to take through the stages that I basically go through in order to find out how to get to my final designs, how to get your inspiration, how to develop initial designs, how to gather ideas, because sometimes we do have points where we are stuck and we don't have any more ideas. So if you guys have any question whatsoever, whatever it might be, don't be scared to ask in the comments. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye! I don't know how to say goodbye without having my face, but anyways, goodbye!